Welcome into a special edition of the PHNX Sun Show. It's free agency frenzy. That's right. The legal tampering period is officially upon us, and we are here to tell you anything and everything that comes up involving your Suns or that impact your Suns. I'm Espo. That is Flex, and we had a flurry of moves yesterday, Flex, so I want to start there. The Suns re-sign, reportedly, agree to terms with Royce O'Neal on a 4-year, $44 million deal, and they're going to bring Bol back on a 1-year deal. Let's start with Royce. Flex, were you surprised at the number he signed
on? Surprised in a good way. Surprised in a good way. 11 million, 1.8 million below the vet minimum. I think it worked for both sides. I think the Suns got the number that they like, and Royce got the years. And so it's a good thing for both sides. The Suns have to be very cautious about how they negotiate these contracts and put themselves in situations where when you got a guy that you can't lose, which he couldn't, and you bring him back, he's also at a salary that could be moved if you need to down the road. And being under the vet minimum for a guy like Royce, that's incredible value. So very excited about that sign.
I am as well. Do you think that it might be front-loaded, though? Because I was surprised it came in under the mid-level exception per year. So I was kind of thinking maybe those first few years might be front-loaded to match that mid-level exception in case you get in a situation where you need to make a trade and you need salaries that match. And that would make sense to me, too, because if you're, if you're Royce, get that money early in case they do that to you. So at least you're compensated more if that winds up happening. Do you think that could be the case in this one?
Yeah, how it's structured hasn't quite come out yet, but I would not be shocked if it's like de-escalated, where, like you said, it's front-loaded and it eventually gets lower as we go. And that makes a lot of sense because, again, if you're going to be at the trade deadline this year, you're going to want to have a couple pieces or a couple contracts that will allow you to get something better than someone on the mid-level. So, yeah, I could see that slightly being a little higher and then, going down as the years progress. But, again, 4 years, 44 is a fantastic deal for Royce. And then you follow it up with, who you're about to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Bol coming back. I think some of us were surprised. We talked a little bit about this on Friday's episode, that your sales pitch was basically, if you come back, you might take a little less than you're going to get on the open market, but you're going to stay in an environment that supported you last year, gave you some of your most quality minutes, not the most minutes he's gotten in his career. He also gets to stay around Kevin Durant. And then next year, they can pay him more because I believe at that point, being there 2 years, they'll have a portion of his bird rights. So they'll be in a situation to offer him more. So I was a little caught off guard that he actually came back, but happily surprised.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how quick he made the decision. I really am. I always knew that the Suns wanted him back. I always knew that he was leaning in that direction. But the fact that he does it emphatically and pretty quick and doesn't even try to waste time with the market tells me that he's matured. He's matured as a basketball player. He's got the right people talking to him. And I always thought this was the right deal for Bobo. I think this gives him longevity. This gives him a chance to continue to build on what he did last year. And it puts him in a situation where if he has another good year, Espo, you kind of reinvent your whole career. You give yourself an opportunity to really get some sustained success. And so good for Bo for having the maturity to see that and make that very clear and get it done really early and let the Suns know what they're doing so that they can attack today and tomorrow and the days coming forward the right way, not in limbo about Bo. So, again, super excited for that deal. And I'm confident they're still working out things with Josh Okogie. I just like what they're doing. You can see that they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, Espo. I know people want this gigantic deal or this big blockbuster or something that shakes up the world. It's not happening. It's not happening. And this is going to be one of the toughest shows I've ever done too, because my phone, as I'm saying every word, my phone is vibrating and this is going to be tough.
Today, all bets are off. I got 6 screens in this little room. We're looking at a little everything. So if it's not the most polished, just deal with it. It's the way it's going to happen today as things are going on fast and furious. So we heard yesterday, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie have opted out, but the Suns, according to Gerald Borges reporting, very interested in bringing both back. And the fact that they opted out means that they can sign for slightly more than their current contract was. So that may be part of it. Want to take a look at the roster as it stands. Damian Lee included on this one right now, but not official. So Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, Kevin Durant, Yusuf Nurkic, Royce O'Neal, Bull, all in. Nasir Little still there. David Roddy, the rookies Ryan Dunn and Oso Iguodaro are on the main roster. Two-way contract is Jalen Bridges. So as it stands right now, you have 10 players on your 15-man roster with the assumption that Damian Lee and Josh Okogie are likely to come back. So assume you're sitting at 12. You really have 3 roster spots to fill right now when it comes to this team, potentially up to 5. Flex, what positions are you looking at them to target and maybe quickly here in free agency?
Yeah, point guard and center. I was on the phone all day yesterday, conversation after conversation, and again, it was very, very emphatic, very clear. They're targeting the point guard position, not one, but maybe even 2 point guards, and then also the backup center position, maybe a lob threat. So you got 3 spots. I want to tell people, you just because it looks like we have 3 spots right now doesn't mean that we necessarily have 3 spots. There are other things that the Suns can do on this roster. There are names that which I don't want to mention. I don't want to disrespect any players, but there are names on this roster that could be moved to open up roster spots. So you get what I'm trying to say,
We know
right?
we know the usual suspects. We looked at them on Trade Machine Tuesdays, and we've talked about them. I think everybody's pretty aware of the guys that you're insinuating here. So there is flexibility still, no pun intended. Is there anybody in particular that you're looking at that if you were sitting in that GM seat, you'd be making that call right now and going, look, you fit here. We want you here. Let's make a deal at that vet minimum and get something going.
Yeah, there's 2 guys. There's 2 guys that I would love for the Suns to be able to find a way to get in this situation. And the first one is a guy we're all familiar with. My boy Campaign, the Haboob, right? Get the Haboob back over here. I noticed there's some mutual interest. I think he would do wonders for this team as far as morale, as far as the vibes. I think he brings enough scoring and tempo that he would fit in a Bud system, and a guy like Chris Dunn. I mean, we just drafted one Dunn who's got the potential to be really good defensively. I'm doubling down. I'm saying let's go get 2 of them now. Again, this is wishful thinking. Dunn, I think, will command more than the vet minimum. But this is one of those situations where you got to really, the agents are going to talk, the people involved are going to talk, and there's a clip. The one thing the Suns have that's different than any other team, Espo, in this situation is that the Suns don't have the money, but they have the potential and the playing time and the role for you to make a lot of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
because you think about it, you come in, you have a career year or resurgence in your career, you can go out on the open market the following year and figure it out. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that you can offer that and get people excited. One former Sun, you already mentioned one. Another one was just cut by the Warriors. Chris Paul released. I get the feeling that he's not an option here, but is that a similar feeling you're getting, Flex?
yeah, I don't know. There's some internal things with Chris. And it wasn't. I'm not saying that Chris wouldn't be able to come back here, but I think that the way the roster's constructed and the way that Chris Paul operates at this point, the timing may not be right or the fit may not be right. I'd love to have Chris back. But I also understand that when you're building an entire team, you have to look at every single piece on the roster. You have to look at all the dynamics. You have to look at, on the court, in the locker room, off the court, all that stuff. And I just feel like Chris is at a part of his career where it just doesn't feel as good as some people might think. And so for that, I don't think Chris is a guy that we should expect to be a Phoenix Sun.
Yeah, I tend to agree. There's names that I find more intriguing at this point too. Monte Morris, who we've heard mixed interest when it comes to him potentially being there, but a young guy that could bounce back. We've seen him have success on a championship team when he was playing with the Nuggets. There's a handful of point guards in that range that I think makes sense. Another one, DeLon Wright, that I'd like them to consider. We'll see. Dunn, I just don't see him leaving Utah. Do you? I mean,
Yeah.
in reality, I don't see him leaving. I'd love him here in Phoenix. I just don't think that'd be the case here. Do you?
Yeah, so I mean, again, Dunn is going to command more than the vet minimum. He can get that. I mean, Utah can give him more. Other teams can give him more. But again, those other teams can't give him a chance to compete. Those other teams can't give him a chance to be a rotational piece, a very important piece to a team that can contend for a championship. So, Chris Dunn's situation is very much like Bobo's. Do you want to make money or do you want to try to change the trajectory of your career a little bit? Do you want to come and be a part of a winning program, potentially be the missing piece, and really take your career or give yourself a chance to make a lot more money down the road? I think that's the dilemma with Dunn. Everything being equal, if the Suns can offer equal money, I think Dunn to Phoenix would be a done deal. No pun intended. But because of that, the young man has some things to think about. But yeah, I would be all over Dunn. I prefer Dunn and campaign over Monte Morris, but I like Monte Morris. I think he can be a nice addition. And then there's a guy like Aaron Holiday, who's another guy that again, can't. I don't sleep on holidays, brother. I just don't. I just don't. Those guys know how to play basketball. And Coach Bud has some good experience with a former Holiday, so I wouldn't be opposed to that, brother.
I want to clear up something. I said Monte Morris was part of that championship team. He was not. He was on the Nuggets prior to the championship, I believe. So Kevin Love, excuse me, guy that has been perpetually always kind of rumored to be an interest of the Phoenix Suns. He has officially signed a 2-year deal to go back to Miami for $8 million. So you can wipe that name off the grease board if you had him there. He is not somebody that the Suns will be acquiring this offseason. This is going a lot slower than last year. Do you remember
It
the
is,
first
yeah, it
5 minutes
is.
of last year? I think the Suns signed 4 or 5 guys right off the bat in terms of veteran minimums. You kind of wonder, have they learned a lesson? Do you think they're taking a little bit more time? Because last year we got 4 or 5 guys that wound up not being on the roster come the trade deadline just because they weren't working out.
Yeah, again, I like this. I like this approach a lot more. I feel like this team is comfortable with what they're doing. I feel like Coach Bud has already made an impact behind the scenes with how they're going to go about this. I like that they're going to let the market kind of set itself, because sometimes you can shoot yourself in the foot if you go too quick, right? You just mentioned it earlier. As it stands right now, it looks like there's 3 spots. And so you rush into those things too quick. There's always a guy that slips through the cracks that you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that was going to go left or that was going to happen. And now this guy's available. So I think they're taking their time. They're going to kind of let the market set itself, see what happens. They have their targets. But again, and funny thing is, I suppose a lot of the guys that they're targeting, we did a good job of covering over the last couple weeks. You know what I mean? Like whether it's a Dennis Smith Jr., whether it's an Aaron Holiday, whether it's a Gary Harris, whether it's a Chris Dunn campaign. Like we've done a good job of kind of staying on top of these guys. And now you got to kind of let them make the decision and see if you luck into something. But I feel good about the fact that I think the Suns are going to walk away with potentially two more point guards or 2 guys that could play point guard. And potentially a big. I mean, that's what they're trying to do, my brother. And so you just cross your fingers and hope things fall the right way.
Do you agree with the approach that we had brought up about not trying to make any major moves, running it back, and trying to keep a majority of this roster together? Because I've heard a lot of people, on our favorite platform, Twitter, complain yesterday that why are you bringing back Bull Bull? Why are you bringing back, Royce O'Neal, which we've gone over why there. Why are you considering bringing back Josh Okogie and Damian Lee? You're just running it back the way it is. Why? And people freak out about that. Do you agree with that?
Agree with them freaking out? Hell no.
No, no, no. Agree with the Suns' approach to
Yes.
to trying to run it back and believing in continuity.
Yes, I do believe in continuity. And if you were a fan of the Suns team that went to the finals, that was our staple. Continuity, right? These guys were together for a little bit. They learned how to play together. Continuity is big, man. And that's why I keep saying I like what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling from, behind the scenes in regards to Coach Bud's impact on what we're doing right now. I'm going to say this again. You're going to hear me say this a lot. And this was told to me yesterday, so I'll repeat it. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to, we want some continuity. We want these guys to run it back a little bit. We want to fix around the edges. We want to give them better tools to navigate the season and better tools for Coach Bud to navigate the season. But they feel good about where they're at. They still believe in the big three of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Brad Beal. They still believe that some of the guys that they have on this roster, especially guys that they're potentially bringing back, can have a big role with this team. And so I like what they did in the draft, Espo. I love what they did in the draft. I like who they targeted in regards to wanting to stay in the program. I love that they're trying to work on some continuity and let these guys build a little more. And I'm excited about what the next few moves are gonna look like. But yeah, I'm good, man. Man, there's a lot of GMs on Twitter, dog.
Look, I go back and forth because I understand why there's some concern. You won 49 games, sure, but how you did it sometimes an issue. You had to go 7-3 at the end to avoid the play-in and to get to that 49, and you got swept in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So how much can continuity really fix that? I think some, but I think people are underestimating what it means to have uh, Coach Budenholzer here. What what was going on in the locker room when it came to Frank Vogel? I think people are not taking that at as a big enough thing here, and as a thing that could have a major impact. Where maybe if you tinker around the edges like they're doing with the draft, like it looks like they're going to do in free agency, maybe a trade or two, that Coach Bud can be enough to get you to where you wanted to be last year, because nobody denied the talent going into last year. In fact, people put them as one of the favorites in the West, if not in the NBA. And in turn, after what happened last year and the injuries and everything, now it's, well, this team can't win at all. I feel like Coach Bud could be that big difference maker that everybody was hoping maybe free agency got you.
Yeah, it's Espo, man. It's blowing my mind. Again, 49 wins. You get swept in the first round. You would think that 49 wins and getting swept in the first round, burn the franchise, sell it, get rid of it. You can't recover from that. And I'm like, it's exhausting, man. Like, they're not the first team to get swept in the first round. And then there's been examples of teams that have got swept in the first round and a couple years later win a championship. Shit, we just saw a team that didn't even make the playoffs, let alone get swept in it, make it all the way to the finals in the Dallas Mavericks. So I continuity matters, man. I mean, listen, you know, me and you have been together almost a year. Okay. It's we have our group at PHNX. And if I told you that we're not better today than we were on my first show, I'd be lying. What is that? That's continuity. That's chemistry. that's going through shit, right? We've had good shows, we had bad shows. I'm really trying to dumb this down and simplify things because there's some people that just look at basketball in a way, and sometimes you just got to keep it very simple. You know, continuity absolutely matters. These guys play 40 games together, Espo, 40 games. You know, how about we give them another crack? How about we put them in a situation with a coach that can better utilize their talents?
You mean a coach that knows how to run an offense, not a defensive-minded coach? Yeah, that might be good. You don't put a preschooler in a Maserati and expect them to win a race. Like
There you go.
I don't understand. I never understood that. By the way, some news from Woj. No, not Suns related, but the Jazz are planning to waive center Omar Yurtseven. So another big man on the board there in free agency. Speaking of big men, S. John 07 in the chat asks, is Nick Richards a free agent? No, Nick Richards is not a free agent. He's under contract with the Charlotte Hornets there. So he is not a free agent. Want to say hi to Brunis, Jacob, S. John 07, Sean, Nightwing, Nacho, Amelia, Jay, hello. All of you, thank you for joining us on this special edition of the PHNX Suns show. Happy to have you here, waiting some news in the NBA. Nothing yet. The biggest news that has come out so far is that Klay Thompson is planning to have discussions with the Mavericks, Lakers, Clippers, and 76ers in the opening hours of free agency. So we shall see. No big names moved yet. Really, the only signing has been Luke Cornett agreeing to a one-year deal with the Celtics. So the new CBA has kind of slowed things down just a bit.
Man, you got James, right? James re-upped with the Clippers, 2 years,
Yes.
70, right?
True.
But yeah, no, the new CBA is actually doing what the new CBA is intended to do. It's making people really think about how they spend their money, where they spend their money. Again, could be a benefit to the Phoenix Suns, right? You got teams that, you know, Cooper Flag is going to be the prize piece this year when it comes to NBA draft and teams wanting to get their hands on a generational talent. Well, you have to stink. You have to stink pretty bad to get your hands on Cooper Flag. And so there's going to be a lot of teams. Let's talk about something, though, because I had this conversation yesterday, Espo, about the new CBA and everyone talking about the apron. But there are other things in this CBA that I think could help the Phoenix Suns that I don't feel is being talked enough about. And I want to talk about the NBA CBA, the floor. Okay, the 90% floor that needs to be reached by some of these teams to be in compliance with the new CBA. So the way it used to work was you had a 90% floor and you had the entire season to hit that floor. Okay, you had until the last regular season game to hit that floor. As long as you got to that floor before the end of your last regular season game, you were in compliance. And the tax money that's divided between all the non-taxpayer teams, they take all the tax money from the teams that are paying tax, they put it in a big bucket, and then they divide that by all the teams that didn't pay the tax, aka the Robert Sarver check or the Robert Sarver fund, right? Because he never paid the tax and he would get a $10, $15 million check every year.
It looks like it's going to be about 11.96 million this year.
Okay. So you're talking about almost $12 million that are going to teams for not being at the tax or for being under the tax. But back to the apron, okay, and back to the floor. The difference in this CBA is the NBA got a little smart. They said, all right, guys, we're not going to let you lollygag through the season, stay above, below that floor and then get there when you want and then get this check. Guess when the first day of the new floor is? Day one.
Beginning of the season.
Beginning of the season. First regular season game, you got to be compliant. You got to be at that 90% floor. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if you're not at that floor, guess what happens? The difference between you and the floor, you got to pay to your players on your roster. You got to put it in a pot, divide it, and cut your guys a check. Number three, you get a cap hold on that difference. So it's not like they're just going to say, you know what? You're scotch free. No, we're gonna triple down and we're gonna put a cap hold on your books for not getting to the 90% floor. Oh, but we're not done. You also disqualify yourself from getting that $12 million check that everybody gets for not being a. So you know what that tells me, Espo? It tells me a lot of teams are gonna have money, but they're not gonna be able to spend it because players in certain spots don't want to go to losing teams. And so they're going to have money that they have, but they can't spend. And they're going to have to find a way to get to the floor. And that's why the Phoenix Suns are playing chess. You get to the floor. You want somebody to get to the floor. You just call up our boys. We'll help you get to the floor.
Yeah, the problem with that, and I get that, and I think you will see a lot of trades that are caused because of that floor. But you're going to have a sweetener, right? Nobody's taking a contract that you don't necessarily want just so they can get that floor. They're going to want draft compensation. They're going to want something to that extent. So that's part of why you pick up those second round picks like you did. That's part of why you don't make a move with that 2031 pick at the draft, because you might be able to get something that can help you. I mean, you're talking teams like Detroit. You're talking teams like Charlotte. You're talking teams like the Nets that are trying to get out of contracts but are going to need to stay at that floor. You're talking the bottom feeders of the league in a lot of ways that are going to have to make those kind of moves, which make it interesting what you're going to be able to do. And, I know you were hesitant to say it, but to me, I'm circling names like Nasir Little. You're circling names like Nick, Nurk. You're circling that name. I mean, it's the usual suspects that you're looking at. But then, okay, if I'm looking at that, is that where I'm going to find that center? Is that where I'm going to find one of these 2-point guards? Is that why we may only see one quick signing from this group and then some waiting in terms of that? Like, I don't think things are going to be as set as they were, July 1 last year when we were looking at this roster.
Yeah, no. Listen, again, all those usual suspects are probably going to be in conversations. I just, you said something that kind of struck a chord. You said when you're dealing with these teams that need to get to the floor, and they're in this conundrum and they're in this pickle, you might have to attach something. Don't be surprised if it's the other way around.
Really?
I'm telling you.
Because teams are going to be desperate to get to that floor, so they might go
the
opposite way.
Yeah, give me that contract. I'll throw you something. Like I'm telling. Listen,
interesting.
This is a different NBA. These owners, a conversation I had yesterday is very intriguing. There's some shook owners. They're shook. Like they're sitting down. They're saying, okay, this ain't what it used to be. You better know that you're all in to win if you're gonna be cutting these checks. Or you better be like tanking and ready to blow it up to try to utilize the draft. But if you're in that middle ground and you know that you're 5-7 years away from even being competitive, what are you doing? What are you doing even trying to be in that conversation or even close to an apron? And so I think you're going to see a lot of teams waving the white flag. And I'm going to tell you right now, let's just talk about what Atlanta just did. Like, let's not sugarcoat that. You're going to tell me that the market for DeJounte Murray is Larry Nance and 2 picks? That's what the market is? Or is that being dictated by what I'm talking about right now? Is that these owners saying, man, listen, we don't want to get no smoke. We don't want to get nowhere near that. We're not good enough to win. We looked at that Boston team. We ain't nowhere close. Let's get out under this right now and not make this our problem anymore. Just because we're not close. And these owners are not going to be okay cutting these checks anymore with these stipulations and not winning. And so, again, that could be a benefit to the Suns because we got an owner that's like, yo, I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to get a championship here in Phoenix. And, a deal we made in the past, a Kurt Thomas. You remember? You're a savant when it comes to this. What did
two
we do?
two first round picks and Kurt Thomas for cash, wasn't it?
There we
It was
go.
nothing.
There we go. So that was absurd when I saw it back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're like, there's no way we just gave up Kurt Thomas and added 2 picks for you to just take them because we're worried about some money situation. You might see some Kurt Thomas trades this summer. you might.
We could use a guy like Kurt Thomas. Too bad he's like 48 right now. So
yeah. I mean, again, this doesn't all apply to the Phoenix Suns, but I'm saying this is a new day in the NBA. Yeah. And man, I mean, just look, man, the Clippers are scared to give Paul George 4 years, dude.
Well, some of that's his injury history and not knowing what Kawhi's injuries are going to look like. So I think they're hedging their bet there, but I get what you're saying. By the way, hi, Lakers hater forever. I see you in the chat. Thanks for saying hi. By the way, I want you guys to tell us in the chat who you want and who you'd be targeting if you were James Jones right now. For the people asking where Gerald is, he is in his home state for his grandmother's 90th birthday, but he is messaging me along the way. Anything that he gets, he will pass along, or if it's big enough, he'll jump on. So don't you worry. Gerald is part of this program just behind the scenes right now. So Flex, I get a lot of these provisions and I get a lot of things that are going on with this CBA. They're going to have to get creative to fill a couple of these holes. And I think we all know as much as we like Oso in the draft from Marquette, he still is a rookie. So you still need to figure out something like you talked about in free agency or via trade at that center position. And I feel like that's where a deal is going to have to happen, probably trade wise, more than the point guard. I look at the veteran free agents out there on the market from a point guard situation. I think you can get 1 or 2 at a vet minimum that can come in and help you for a year, and you can address that long term at a different stage. But to me, it feels like the big men is where you're going to have to get creative, because I look at that list. There's nobody that jumps off that list for me in terms of a vet minimum that could come in and solidify that. I think Oso is a very interesting piece to that equation and for a long time coming here. But I feel like you still need someone that's more of a short-term option there. And I feel like you're going to have to look at that on the trade market more than free agency. In your mind, is there somebody in free agency that stands out, or do you kind of agree with that?
No, I kind of agree with that. I mean, the free agent market is what it is, man. They're vet minimum options for a reason. So I can warm up to a plethora of dudes, and I think there's some guys that will fit, like a glove in this spot. We rushed into things last year. Did we not hit everything we wanted last year? 30 minutes into it, yeah.
Well, we thought it was a home run.
That's right. 30 minutes into it, we thought it was a home run. There were player after player after player after player. And, with hindsight being 2020, you have the opportunity to look at that. And you're like you said, most of those guys didn't even make it past the deadline with us. And so I think there's some intriguing guys out there. But I do think that before we talk any trade, and this is just my opinion, before the Phoenix Suns talk any trade, I think you got to kind of let this play out. I keep hearing people say, trade Nurk, trade this, trade that. You can't trade Nurk. Well, I mean, don't trade Nurk if you don't even know what's coming yet. Like, how about we decide what's coming, figure out what the free agency market looks like for bigs, figure out if you're going to get some of these point guards, figure out how many roster spots you got. Because the trade market is always going to be there. You don't have to rush into that. But I do agree, if you're going to get a center that is impactful, it might be more on the trade market than it would be on a vet minimum.
Deborah wants to know about Spencer Dinwiddie and Sadiq Bey. Sadiq Bey, I believe, was let go yesterday, waived. Any thoughts on either of those guys and their fit? I don't really see Spencer Dinwiddie, but I would love your thoughts, Flex.
I love Sadiq Bey. I mean, I'm a Villanova guy. Villanova guys just know how to play basketball. Always been a Sadiq Bey fan. Again, though, I just don't know the fit right now. Like, we got very minimal roster spots. I am a fan of bringing in a point guard. I am not against potentially bringing in two. And then we need a big. So as much as I would like Sadiq Bey, I just don't know if he would fit with what we're doing right now based on the roster construction and the space available. But I'll go back to what we said earlier. If you were able to land a guy like Sadiq Bey, I'd be thrilled. You just have to look at one of those guys on the roster and say bye-bye. Because the numbers just don't add up. You know what I mean? So, if you get a Sadiq Bey, does that mean you have to work on a Nasir Little trade? If you get a Sadiq Bey, does that mean you have to move David Roddy? That's all possible. But I love Sadiq Bey. I'm not Dinwiddie. I don't know about that one. But yeah, I'd welcome Sadiq Bey on this team. They just have to move some things around.
Latest news from Shams is that the Thunder are meeting with Isaiah Hartenstein today, and OKC has the necessary cap space if they wind up finding a common ground there between the two. So real slow across the league, not just the Phoenix Suns right now. By the way, Mark in the chat says trade Espo for Gerald. Gerald is way better at reporting. You're going to have to give up a hell of a lot more than just me for Gerald. That's how much value Gerald has in the market and on this program as well. So centers like Mo Bamba's name's been out there as somebody to look at. Dario Saric. None of these big man names really, Weissman as well. None of these names that really excite me. Is there anybody in that group that you look at and go, that guy might be able to solve these problems that the Suns have?
Oh man. Again, I like the guards more. I like Goga. Gogo Bataje is interesting. If I'm gonna go for a big, first things first, he has to be a rim running big, a lob threat, somebody that can put pressure on the rim. So if you're looking at an older guy, I'm not so high on those guys. If you're looking at a younger guy, another Bobo project, a guy that maybe is undervalued or underappreciated, or maybe hasn't been on the right team. I looked into a little bit of Wiseman, just because I keep hearing his name. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of Wiseman. Again, Goga's interesting. He's got some game. But man, it's slim pickings when you start to think about a guy that's going to be able to apply pressure and be a lob threat and be able to finish at the rim. You want youth, you want athleticism, and some of these older guys that might be on vet minimums just aren't going to provide that. So again, I'm more locked in on the point guard market than I am the center market. I'm having a hard time, Espo, warming up to a lot of these guys that are available at the center spot.
So let's take a look at some super chats. Tim from Phoenix says, this is all CJ McCollum's fault. Yes, the president of the Players Association, who agreed to the CBA, certainly has slowed down the beginning of free agency. And then let's take a look at the other one here from Hunter. Don't forget, we got Bowl after he was waived a few days later after the start of free agency last year. Patience is key. And I think that's a good reminder there, because that was a guy that a handful of days into free agency was let go, wound up, I believe it was around Summer League last year, winding up here in Phoenix. So there is something to be said for that. And obviously, you got to wonder if the market also is kind of waiting on Klay Thompson and Paul George to see how that nets out, because the teams that are going after both those guys are teams with a lot of cap space, right?
Yeah.
Usually those are the teams that set the market and the price for certain guys in terms of what they're going to get, which then trickles down to the lower guys that the Suns may be looking at and understanding their value. So no agent, I think, wants to jump the gun and accept a vet minimum before they understand the entire landscape of the entire free agent market. So I wonder if we don't see anything move within the next couple of hours or maybe well into the night, simply because those two guys are holding the market hostage at this point.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. That's kind of what this is feeling like. Again, teams are going to be a lot more hesitant to just throw money out there. You got to see what happens with Clay. You got to see what happens with PG. Um, I think you're right, Espo. I think we may be looking at the complete opposite of last year. Last year was boom, 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 boom. Let's get it going. This year may be more of a slow roll, and you might have agents that are telling players, "Hey, you know what? This is a little weird. Do we punt on trying to do something this year long term? Do we take a small 1-year deal and get back into the market next year?" All those conversations are being had, and it's intriguing as hell. But I got a feeling that this market, the effect of the CBA is clear as day right now with this new CBA and how the free agency market seems to be playing out.
I want to circle back to point guards. We started off talking about there, and Judah Zoinkinski in the chat says we need a point guard, not a combo guard at point guard. One of the names you mentioned was Campaign, who most view as more of a combo point guard. What is it in your mind that makes Cam a fit here? Because we know he's been turnover prone in the past, which was a big issue for the Suns. Why do you think he could be a fit in a reunion with the Suns team?
Well, it's interesting because first things first, you can call Cam whatever the hell you want to call him, but he played point guard for us. Like when Chris Paul was out and we didn't have Chris Paul in the playoffs and we were winning games against the Clippers, your point guard was Campaign. So you can call him whatever you want. Yes, he's a scorer, but he plays point guard and he's capable of playing point guard. The main thing with Cam for me is the energy and the tempo. You want to play faster? You get a guy like Campaign on your team. You want to push the tempo? Campaign will do that. You need a bucket. He can do that. You want to get the crowd excited. He can do that. These are all things that tie into the whole pot. So, yeah, is he a traditional point guard? Is he Tyler Collect? Is he coming out here trying to set people up in pro defenses and try to get 8 dimes a game? No, that's never been Cam's game. But this idea that Campaign can't come in and play point guard. By the way, who the hell are you finding to do that? I'm just curious. Like, what point guard are you coming in that is coming in to actually be a floor general 10 minutes a game? Because he ain't starting.
Yeah, you know everybody's going to be CP3. It's not happening.
Not happening.
So when you look at it as well, sorry, I got something going on here. I don't know what
you got a little echo there.
How about now?
There we go, baby. There we go.
A button on the mixer got hit. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to sound like a robot. But people say Chris Paul. We already addressed that. That's likely not happening. I think Hello makes a good point in the chat. So says Payne will force Book and KD to run when he's in. Pace of play was much slower than you would have liked to have seen it last year. So I find that an interesting point in terms of what a Campaign could wind up bringing to the roster. Buddha the Schizo wants to know, can I call Cam a dinosaur? He said, your usual line there. You kind of sound like you said it. I'm going to call him a megalodon, but we'll keep going on that. Amelia says, I love Campaign. Turbo. Yeah, yes. I like Campaign. Calvin wants to know, would Isaiah Thomas be coming back? I just don't expect that to happen. I don't see that happening as well. And a lot of people asking why I auto-tuned myself. That was an accident. So Leo says this team needs a dog. Jay Crowder, please.
You might have just got 2 of them in a draft.
Younger, much younger versions of him for sure. In Jalen Bridges and Ryan Dunn in different ways. You think Jalen actually has a shot at making this roster? I mean, I know that that's another name where you're looking at some of these guys that we talked about that might not be on the roster. come opening day. I kind of wonder, could Jalen Bridges wind up surprising enough in summer league, doing some things in camp that he could take one of those spots?
Absolutely. He's gonna have all the opportunity in the world. You're gonna go to summer league. He's gonna have an opportunity in camp. He's got a great body. Like I said, he can create a shot. He can great catch and shoot guy. 41% from three. Good body. Um, I don't think people are understanding what this influx of youth does for a team like the Suns. Like we needed a lot of things last year, but what we needed was some young blood, some dogs. Like I think a guy like Dunn and Bridges and Oso, they're gonna come in and they're going to bring a different life to practice, a different life to the locker room, a different life to the game. But they're rookies. And I know the next thing is, well, rookies aren't going to do anything for us. They're not going to be ready. They have too much development to do. This, that, and the third. And then you go look at a couple years back when we were competing and destroying the NBA and winning 64 games. Who did we run into, Espo, in that first round? The Pelicans,
The
right?
Pelicans,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know
rough series,
you know how many rookies played on that team?
a hell of a lot.
Gave us everything we can handle. And if you go back and watch that team, yeah, there was a young Herb Jones who was a rookie, played damn well. A young Alvarado who was a rookie, played damn well. I want to say Murphy, right? Trey Murphy was on that team, played damn well. And these are rookies, guys. These are rookies. So this idea that rookies can't come in and contribute and help long term or down the road in the regular season just blows my mind. So especially these type of rookies, you're talking about a high IQ guy and also, and you're talking about potentially one of the best, if not the best defender in this draft, and one of the best defenders in the draft in a long time. I spoke to someone last night who said it's been 20 years since he's seen a defender with this type of potential. So yeah, I mean, take that however you want, but I know one thing: defense travels. Guys know how to play defense. He's gonna get on the court.
Very true. Some news here from Stoner Kitchen says breaking news: Suns have signed that Espinoza guy to a 2-year deal to run socials. I love that callback joke to the disgraced former owner in my time there. But some actual news. Yahoo Sports is reporting that Russell Westbrook may be on the move after opting in to his $4 million contract. That they're looking for a deal now that James Harden has officially come back. So some questions on, could you make a move for Russell Westbrook? I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know exactly where they stand in terms of their where they are in the apron, but the idea of a Nas Little who has a $6 million contract and a sweetener, maybe a second or two for a Russell Westbrook, could be a interesting way to fix at least one of those point guard slots.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not gonna never say no to Brody. I love Westbrook. I think his energy, his toughness, everything he brings to the table is something the Suns can use. So yeah, if Westbrook is one of these point guards that we add, I wouldn't be upset. But I'm with you, Espo. I don't know where they stand in the apron. I don't know if they're both in the spot where neither can take a penny more, and it has to be like right on the money. Not sure. It's not in front of me, so not sure how that's going to work out. But
I'd imagine they're not with
PG,
opting out.
yeah,
I'd imagine they're below it. I don't know what the Harden money exactly where they would land, but that makes it interesting. I would very much like to explore that. Not
yeah,
gonna lie, Russell Westbrook. If you're looking at a campaign, you damn well should be looking at a Russell Westbrook, who I think in some ways at this stage is a better version of what campaign's offering, and that's not a slight at Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook was one of the greats early in his career, but at this point, there's a reason he's making $4 million. But it's definitely a guy that could come in and help you off the bench for sure. I just don't know if they're actually going to kick the tires or not. Some more questions about. Oh, I can't find that one now. If I see it, we'll go back to it. But Flex, I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that that this has moved so slow, but I actually did expect at least one or two things to kind of give here early in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still early. I mean,
It is.
we're 50 minutes into this, right? Is there a world where we get off this at 4 o'clock and at 4:02, boom, boom, boom? Like that could happen, right? We don't know how this is gonna play out. I think we got a little bit spoiled last year with the rapid fire of how it went. But yeah, I mean, a little surprised, but you made a great point that I think we have to continue to pounce on. I think Paul George and Clay Thompson right now are kind of the guys that are hijacking the market. And until you see something definitive there, you're going to have a lot of these teams on the pause, and you're going to have a lot of these players on the pause, just kind of just sitting back saying, okay, where do these guys land? And once that's done, who's available and how much money I got. So yeah, it may be, and these are two guys that are not like sure. Like, listen, there's questions about Paul George. There's a lot more questions about Klay Thompson. This isn't like we're talking about two guys that are clear cut. Like, this is no brainer. Give them the max, get that done. There's some issues on both sides, particularly with injury. So that gives me a reason to think this could drag on. Like, it could be a minute before those guys get settled in.
Well, and they're both guys that at this point, I don't think necessarily want to chase the money without the ability to win,
That's
right?
right.
Which shrinks that pool even smaller. And in some cases, they may be trying to fight for some of the same dollars
Yes.
too there in some ways. So KCP, another guy that I think probably has to find his home before some of this
Yep.
will kind of loosen up and start to see some deals. Are we staying on till the Suns actually sign somebody? Is this like a marathon
Is that what you want to do? Is
show?
that what you want
Champs
to do?
04, Champs 04 wants to hear your thoughts, Flex, on Patrick Williams signing a 5-year, $90 million deal to return to Chicago, and if you think that's a good deal.
I love Patrick Williams. I do. I was floored when I saw that. Floored, especially in the world we're in right now, with this new CBA. That felt a little rich for me. That felt a little rich for me. And I love Patrick. I think Patrick's terrific. But yeah, I looked at that deal and I was a little shocked. I'm a little confused with what the hell Chicago's actually doing. Um, I don't know. Talk to me, Espo. Did you see the
Well,
same thing? Because I
yeah,
love the kid, but the money doesn't make sense.
I don't understand what Chicago's doing in general. I mean, they're making this deal. They're trying to give away Zach Levine for anything. There's no market. Like I don't understand what Chicago's in basketball purgatory, right?
Yeah.
They're not good and they're not bad. They're fighting for the play in constantly, and I don't understand why you want to live there. Right? That just makes no sense to me. And I know some of it is simply if you can't find somebody to make a trade for a guy like Zach Levine, well, you're on the hook for it, and that's your own doing for signing. But yeah, it's interesting. Wally saying that Shams is reporting on his show that Westbrook wants to be a Nugget. So interesting.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, I know he wants to win. That's for sure. I mean, I think he's done trying to mess around. I mean, we've seen this for quite some time. Russ wants a ring, man. So if he thinks Denver is that team, I mean, they just got rid of Reggie Jackson, didn't they?
Yeah, he could fill that
So
spot.
there's a spot there available. Would make a lot of sense. That's interesting. I'd be intrigued by that, Espo. But KCP is another domino you got to see fall. I mean, you're hearing rumblings that maybe Philly could be gearing up to get KCP and Paul George. That's interesting, but that also changes the dynamic out in Denver. So, yeah, I think until we see PG and Clay, man, this is gonna get it's gonna get a little stale.
T asks why I'm lying. Chicago's ass. Am I wrong? That team just feels like it's middling. It does not feel like it's bottom out kind of team with some of the talent it still has, but it's not a good team either. I don't. They're not a team unless they make some additional moves that are in the tanking category. I don't think they're
Yeah.
tanking at this moment. I think they're in no man's land.
You know who they are? They're the Brooklyn Nets last year.
Yeah.
That's who I think they are. Oh, we got Cam, we got Mikal, we did this, we did that. We're gonna kind of try to sit in the middle here. And then that happened. And then it's like, okay, let's go all in. Like what they did this year, what the Nets did this year was go all in. Okay, we're gonna tank. We're done. We know we're not beating the Celtics. We know we're not a true contender. Let's get this out the way. I'm just waiting for the Bulls to get to that point. And again, $18 million a year for Pat Williams is not like absurd. I'm falling off my chair. I can't believe Pat Williams got $18 million. I love Pat. I think Pat's very good. And when you think about it, now that a couple minutes to think about it, with this new CBA and where things are going, to have Pat Williams' $18 million contract being able to be moved, maybe that's more of the thought process here. It's like let's get some guys under decent contracts that could be aggregated, or we can fill in with some deal. You just don't want to lose Pat Williams. But I thought it was a little rich
So
for my opinion. By a
kind
couple
of their
million.
version of the Royce O'Neal move with a little
Yes.
bit more
With
money in
little
it
bit
because
more.
he's younger and more potential. I can get
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
Axel wants to know, can we afford PJ Tucker via trade? No, he opted into the $11.5 million deal player option that he had. So he is 100% off the board. And I'm not sure anybody will trade for him at all. But I don't blame PJ. Get your money. Get every cent you can from Steve Ballmer and the Clippers.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm doing. Good job, PJ.
Jordan Spears says, I live in Chicago and not a single Bulls fan I know is a fan of Pat Will.
Is that right?
Loved
him at Florida State, man.
Sly wants to know, is Lonzo Ball available? I believe he is, but with those health issues, I'm not sure you want to take that swing.
I mean, I don't think people understand what Lonzo actually went through. Like, I'm praying that he comes back. I'm praying that he finds a way to contribute and get his, just get his passion for the game. Not passion, wrong word. Give the opportunity to get back to doing something he's passionate about without the injuries. But man, if you talk about injuries, what Lonzo went through is a whole different thing, man. This guy had like artificial cartilage, experimental surgeries done in that knee, and that's a tough one for me.
Wally says it was reported that the Clippers want to trade PJ Tucker. Of course, they want to trade him at $11.5 million. Just like the Bulls want to trade Zach LaVine. I don't think either of those guys is going to be on the move anytime soon. Probably LaVine before PJ. That's just $11.5 million is not what you want to pay for a vet minimum like that.
Yeah.
One of the chatters wants to know about Nicholas Batum. That's a guy that you've had on your radar that you like, right?
Boom, 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 boom. That's my guy. I love me some Nick Batum. We're gonna have to see how the market shakes out, and we're gonna have to see, what kind of money's out there for Nick. I do think we're getting to a point where Nick Batum is a vet minimum guy. I love to have him. He's a winner. He's just one of those guys that if he's on your team, good things tend to happen with Nick Batum. So a big fan of him, but I also will say I know that's not a position they're targeting right now. I'll continue to say it, point guard first, and then center, and then whatever shakes out after that will shake out. But I love Nick Batum. They're one of my favorite guys in this market.
AKK says DeLon Wright or Dunn would be perfect fits for the Suns. I agree. I like both of those guys in one of those backup slots, or if you can get both, I'll be greedy. I'm not against being greedy at this point. Amelia says, hit that like button. We agree. Plenty in here. I think we're going to wrap this up for right now. Take our lap. It's been an hour and nothing is really broken in NBA circles. So if something else does come up this evening, we will be back. We will definitely touch on it on an emergency pod if any signings are made for your Phoenix Suns. But right now, all quiet on the NBA front, it appears, as of right now, as we believe, waiting for PG and Klay Thompson to sign is going to be really what unlocks the rest of free agency. Sham's still reporting that Russell Westbrook and the Clippers are trying to find a trade, but that is all we have on that front. So we will end it here for our beginning of free agency frenzy. Not as exciting as last year at this time, where by now we had 4 Suns signings and a plethora of other signings around the NBA. But we will be back if anything breaks. Flex, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's good that it's not like last year because we saw how last year played out. So take your time, Suns. Make the right decisions. Take your time. We'll patiently sit back and wait. And when something pops off, you got the squad here. We'll fill y'all in.
You can follow Flex at Flex from Jersey. He'll be talking about everything going on in NBA free agency when he's not here on the mic. Follow at Gerald Bourget for updates and reporting as well. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. You can follow me at Espo. And remember, it's always fun when you accidentally auto-tune yourself. Oh, boy.
We all silly like the mayor.